Hey everyone, in this video, I'm going to take you through how much you should spend on marketing your feature film. And I'm going to help you actually allocate specific dollar amounts to each of the line items in your marketing budget. Now, before we get to that, what I want to talk about first is what we actually should be excluding from the marketing budget, because that's a really important conversation to have. What shouldn't be included? And one of the big, I think, confusion points around a marketing budget for a feature film is whether, as filmmakers, we should be including the costs of promoting the film, typically referred to as a P&A budget. And my strong view is that actually we shouldn't be including those costs in our production budget, and ordinarily they're not included. Because if a filmmaker sells the film to a distributor, a distribution company, they are responsible for marketing the film. They are responsible for putting up the money to promote the film, typically called the P&A budget, and they can recoup that money before they pay a commission back to us filmmakers. So for me, it doesn't make sense that we should also be putting up the money that the distributor is then going to use to promote the film if they're going to keep like 50% of that revenue anyway. They should be the ones taking on the risk to promote the film. Now, I'm not sure why it has become a thing amongst indie filmmakers, or why that advice is kind of thrown around that we need to be including money for promoting the film in the budget, because if we don't, no one else will. I don't think that's right, and I want to run you through why I don't think that is. So firstly, the nature of the film distribution business is really important to understand. So if the film is going to be successful at the box office, two things need to happen. The film needs to get on a certain number of screens, like a minimum number of screens, and ideally as many screens as possible, either on opening day or through some sort of platform release. That is like a precondition, has to happen. The second thing that has to happen is that the word of mouth needs to be positive and strong so that the film actually develops a run, it has legs, as they say, and it's able to sustain a long theatrical run. Now, we're not talking about the second one, right? Word of mouth, because that just means you've got to make a good film. So let's just say you've made a great film. Then we go to number one. Well, what do cinemas look for when they book a film? They want to know who's in it, which actors are in it, because that's going to draw an audience in. They want to know how broad is that audience, right? Or is there a really well-defined audience? They want to know who's releasing the film, right? Which distributor is actually releasing it, because that's going to influence their decision. And how much is that distributor spending on the P&A budget? So if as filmmakers, we want to put up a marketing budget or a P&A budget for our film, and if we're thinking of self-releasing the film, then we're only going to really influence one of those factors that the cinema owner makes. And let's just say we're talking about indie films here, right? Because that's what this channel is about. So let's say the film is like under 3 mil, for example, or even under 5 mil. How much would you be allocating as a P&A budget, even if that's something that you're going to do? If it's, let's say it's like 200,000 to 500,000, let's say it's a couple $100,000, is that money going to move the needle? Is that going to be the difference between your film being a success or not? Because if we're only influencing one of the factors that the cinema owner kind of takes into account, which is marketing budget, then that might just not be enough to move the needle. And what I would suggest is that rather than saying like, I'm going to allocate 200K to marketing, wouldn't we be better off spending 200K on attracting a more well-known talent, right? A talent who has basically like a bigger profile, because that's another factor for the cinema owner, right? Who is in the film. The distributors are going to take that into account. So a better actor is going to lead to getting a better distribution deal. And of course, it's going to lead to having more, they're going to want to support the release, and so they're going to put more money behind it. So you're going to influence more factors for the cinema owner. So my view is that like by putting a few $100,000, let's say, into a P&A budget, number one is like, I just don't think it's the right approach. I don't think it's the right strategy. I think if we're doing it and we're planning to attach a distributor, honestly, then that distributor is just getting a free ride. Like, why would we spend all our money on making the film and raising money for marketing and then give it to them just to spend the money and not take any risk and take a huge commission from that? So those two things for me, like, just don't add up. So my view on this is that a better approach is to focus on landing a big distributor. That should be the number one goal, right? You want to make a film that's so good that gets picked up by an A24, a Neon, a Searchlight, a Focus, right? You want your film to be released by a great distribution company who's going to support the release of the film, who has the marketing who has the marketing resources, right? They have a huge team. They have resources that they can put into marketing that absolutely dwarf your kind of P&A budget that you were thinking about including in your production budget. And it's going to give the film the best chance of success. Now, you might be thinking, well, what if we can't land those big distributors? Like, shouldn't we have some sort of backup plan, some marketing, some P&A spend that we can tap into? And I get the thinking behind that, but if all those distributors have said no, it might mean that there's no audience for the film. But even if they're all wrong, which they can be, right? That absolutely happens. Then I'm still not sure that self-releasing the film and putting up a few $100,000 in marketing, in P&A spend, is going to move the needle. I don't think it's going to allow you to compete. And I think ultimately that money might end up actually just going to waste, and you might not even recoup that. And so the story I think of when I think of this is Paranormal Activity and Jason Blum, right? So that film was turned down by all these distributors. He then took it on, got turned down again by like all these distributors, all these studios, everyone turned it down. Finally, he got Paramount to, go to a test screening of the film, and they saw it with an audience and suddenly realized that it was this big theatrical film, right? And so they took it out, they spent the money to do so, and the film became a massive hit. But my point here is that Jason Blum didn't decide to self-release the film. Even though he believed in this film so much, his plan was never to self-release it. His plan was never like, I'll go raise a couple $100,000 and I'll release it myself. Because he understood that for the film to be a success, it needed that marketing engine that only a studio or a film distribution company has. And so that's why, in my view, allocating some sort of P&A budget into your marketing budget isn't the right move. Now, what is the right move and what should you include in your marketing budget? Well, my view on this is that there are a few key areas and that you should really spend big in these areas. And those are trailer. So with a trailer, there's a company in Australia who charges 25 to 35 grand. So $25,000 to $35,000 to cut a trailer. And my view is that that's money very well spent, because they cut the best trailers, not only in the country, but some of the best countries in the world. And your trailer and your poster are two of the main selling assets of your film. So number one's trailer. Number two is poster. So again, this same company charges between, I think, 6 to 10 or 6 to 15K for a poster, one poster. Again, you might think that's a lot of money. Yeah, it is, but if you get one of the best posters, if you get a great poster, something that people are going to click on when they're scrolling through VOD, or something that cinema goers are going to it's going to really catch their attention when they're walking through the cinema, then it's absolutely worth the money. So that's the next area. So just between trailer and poster, you can allocate $50,000 just there. And I would say that that's money very well spent. The next one is unit publicist. So you could allocate 5 to 10K for a unit publicist, and they're going to help you with publicity during the production. But you could also make sure that part of that agreement is if you get into any big festivals, then they'll also be on board and provide services for that. So again, that's money well spent, because it could get you reviewers. Reviews are really important in terms of building up the credibility of the film. The next one will be stills. So as part of all the deliverables, every distributor who you need to deliver to, they always need a set number of stills, and a lot of them need quite a lot. And so having really professional stills taken on set is again an area that I would recommend spending on. So you could spend anywhere from probably 3 to 8K in that area. And then, publicists, obviously I've mentioned. And then the last one would be basically just any design work that you want to get done. So usually what you put together at the end of the film is some sort of press notes or press kit. So you might hire a designer to help you put that together. So just looks really professional. And that might be 2 to 3K. So between all of those areas, you can easily end up spending somewhere between like 50 to 75K, somewhere in there, just in your marketing budget. And again, that's not to promote the film, but it's to create the absolute best assets that you can create. It's to work with like the best people in the world when it comes to creating these assets, so that when you hand them over to the producer or your sales agent, they've got the best selling tools at their fingertips to start then promoting the film, and to start then spending money on the advertising, right? To drive traffic to those assets. So that's it for this video. I hope it was helpful. If it was, hit the like button. And this can be a controversial topic, so let me know what you think in the comment section below.